I
right?
am currently the best Marvel Rivals player in the world.
Who I have with me today is the winner of the official Marvel Rivals Champion Tournament, and he is objectively not only one of the best Vanguard players, but objectively one of the best Marvel Rivals players I've seen and I've had on this by far. I have TrqstMe.
Hello. I am TrqstMe, and I recently won the World Championship, and I'm here to give you guys some tips.
What is something that you do as a Vanguard that you say that a lot of players don't do? Well, albeit low ranks or even high ranks. What separates you?
Oh, this is like a general question.
Yeah,
In my opinion, of course, it's the entire package, right? Some people lean into having worse mechanics, right? Some people lean into having better mechanics. Like, this is like a genuine question, and I think it's like always worth to include in a video.
Yeah.
But if you're a very good player, or like even you as a content creator, you get asked the question, why am I as a plat player, or what makes a diamond player better than me as a plat player?
Yeah.
Right? And it's the same case for professionals. I'm better than other professionals because I do some things better than them. That can be mechanical part. That can be meaning that I'm aiming better, that I use my cooldowns better, right? That can be my decision making is better when I go in, right? How I use my ultimates, right? But in the majority of the game in general, that's always going to be the entire package. As I said, some people lean into doing something much better than others. So for like lower ranks, in example, that would be that. Like you might find a diamond player that's better than a plat player because he has better aiming but less game sense. Because the aiming overweighs his game sense and is more important for him as a player to get to that rank. So I think it's the same case for like us professionals, you know, just more focused and way more minimalistic on things. Like if you want to be the best of the best, like I am, when we practice, we want to correct every single micro interaction, every single mistake. So everything needs to be as close to perfection as we can. Of course, perfection is just a goal, but I feel like you have to think like that if you want to be the best.
I also realize that there's one thing that people really struggle with, right? I see that you are, in my opinion, no glaze, full glaze, one of the most complete players. Let's say you have aim that's solid, you have good mechanics, and you have really good game sense. You aren't really lacking in area, and a lot of players and a lot of streamers do fall under this category, by the way. A lot of streamers do. A lot of, I'm not gonna say their names, right? But there's lots of Spider-Man streamers who are insane with the character. Like, they do the most insane combos. But they're not good at aiming in general, and they're not good at game sense. That's why they're stuck hovering around Diamond or GM, right? Would you agree?
And often it's definitely true, you know? Like, I mean, obviously, if you want to climb with like playing only Spider-Man, there's a lot of limitations on you too, right? Such as ban phases, right? Meaning that your hero can get banned suddenly on a hero that you're not comfortable on, and you might end up losing games, right? Because you can't play your main hero. Then there is the possibility of like if you get counter swapped or if the hero is not even good for the map, right? If the hero is not like, of course you can always climb with heroes, but there's always a capacity of what is possible. Even the top players in the world, like let's say like the best player on Spider-Man is Necros. I'm just gonna say him right now, just as an example, right? Let's say the best player is Necros because he's unarguably in the highest rank with Spider-Man, or at least was in Season 0. So it's fair to say him. For me personally, it just means that he beating players that are worse than him on other characters. It doesn't mean that Spider-Man is necessarily the best pick, right? It means that he's strong with it, and I believe that you can play any character at the highest level if you manage to get past the players that are your competition, right? So you can like beat and outperform people no matter what character you play. But at the top level, that's kind of hard to do because people know how to counter stuff and how
there's a limit at that
point. So
point.
there's a limitation, and I would always recommend people to never ever OTP. Like, don't play only one hero, play multiple heroes. It's so unbelievably important to cover your own weaknesses and to get more useful in the game overall, right? Because you might like play, let's say you're playing Captain America and you find yourself in a matchup with Phoenix and Emma in the enemy team. And suddenly you're under a lot of pressure, right? And it's really, really hard to find divers, right? Even if you don't have Luna, Snowflake, or any of the resources you get because you have no one that can dive with you and the map is just not allowing it, then it's like, there's like so many odds against you. The hardest part for a lot of people though is finding out when that is the case. You know, that's generally the hardest part, and it's like, really hard to figure out.
Because like, let's say for example, you can, let's realistically, there is a chance you can maybe play a cap into ammo, right? Like you can handle the weaknesses, but there is a point where it's not even a weakness. At that point, you are just throwing. Like, you know, always people try to tell you, oh, it's okay if they're picking your counter, whatever, just keep playing. Like, you learn how to play against your weaknesses. And I think that's a very stupid argument, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is definitely not a very good argument.
Like, I understand the logic, and it's like, if you're playing against a slight, like, 1 or 2 counters, it's fine. Maybe you can play around them, ignore them and stuff, right? But when you are playing at the very high level, they're not gonna allow you to do that thing, right? Like, you aren't...
It's just not worth.
Yeah.
It would mean that you're still giving them more value, right?
Yeah.
Like, value can be decided by general uptime, right? If you have to play around cooldowns, an example, it's you like playing the game slower than other people. And the general rule, like for anything in the game, like not even tank exclusive, right? But it applies, of course, the most on tank is to always do more damage than you take. And if you take more damage, it needs to be for your team's value. So an example, like if you're a tank, right? Everyone in the enemy team needs to look at you when everyone in your team is fighting.
Yeah.
Right? This is a very important thing, and a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people peek the opponent. Peeking means you look into their line of sight, right? They can look at you, and your team cannot look at them back. That's usually a very bad peek, and it means that you're like essentially taking damage for no reason, right?
Exactly.
In a way.
There always needs to be a reason for every
important.
action.
Yes.
Because a lot of players, what they do is like, let's say they're fighting, right? They're like, oh, but guys, I'm tanking. And then they open tab. They're like, look, guys, I have 80k damage blocked. And it's like, I'd rather a tank who'd have 10k damage block, and in those 10k, it's the game-winning fights, as opposed to just 80k of just sitting around, like, playing footsies and doing fuck all.
It's not only that, but if you take a lot of damage, right, someone has to compensate for it.
Yeah.
Like, in example, like, if you make misplays, right, someone has to compensate for it. That can be, like, someone will take more damage because you're taking more damage, right?
Exactly,
that would mean that you are the one getting healed focused, so your heals will be occupied, and then the one person that would need heals, that
dies.
Those heals cannot be contributed to him, right?
Yeah.
So that is like one of the main aspects for it, and that happens to anyone. It's the same thing with timing on DPS dives. Like, if you off time you engage when the opponent is like currently not active and your team is not active, it's the same thing, right? Then you're just gonna like allow them to poke you out in a 1v6 situation, which makes it infinitely easier for them to sustain your dive. Right? And then suddenly you find yourself in a position where they can end up walking into your team, because while you try to get your cooldowns back, your team is fighting a 5v6 fight. Right?
Exactly.
So that is what can happen, and that's what happens with many players in lower ranks. Yeah. Or like in general, right? Like even at the top level.
Exactly. They don't understand their cooldowns, the value.
It just happens less often in higher ranks, you know, or in professional environments. Like, we also try to do everything perfectly, but of course that's never the case. Yeah. Right? We're
still human at the end of the day. And I really wanna emphasize that point, because I feel like it's genuinely a point you can use in games. You need to understand at the end of the day, your opponents are human, right? And let's say I'm playing like a flanker, right? And you know the 3-lane system in maps, it's very fucking obvious. This is just not even 3-lane, just in general. If you are playing a DPS and you are constantly going through one flank, like one angle, you need to remember these people are humans. Like, they will understand that that's the only angle you can come out of. I feel like that's the issue with a lot of players. They autopilot their games and they don't mix it up. I think one of the best ways to really carry games on DPS is you have to always mix it up. Do you agree? Like, always take different angles, always be unpredictable. Don't be predictable and take the same exact flank angle like 8 times in a row, even if you die.
It's a pretty generalized thing to say this, I feel like, and the game is just so individual and specific that I can't really answer that as of right now, personally. But even if you would want me to agree to that, of course, like, it depends on what your goal is, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you have like a dive composition, right?
Yeah.
And you want to like make sure that you kill the enemy backline, and then you approach from different angles as on the dive position, right? Then it makes sense, right? Because otherwise the opponent will scout you, at least if they're better, right? So they're gonna walk into the angle you were previously on, at least the tanks will, and try to scout you out. But that can happen. But sometimes there's also the case where you need to keep holding the same position to not allow the opponent to walk onto you. That could be if you like having a slower composition than the opponent and they play a dive composition, so you prevent the opponent dive from rotating into that area, right? And that would mean that you have to control the space anyway that you're already guarding with your DPS. So It,
Yeah,
it
you're
depends
correct.
on like the situation.
It's
for
very
sure.
broad,
But
yeah.
it's very, very broad. Yeah, it's very
I
broad.
feel like that's one thing with the game. Like, the game is so broad and forgiving, and like we can't really give like one size fits all advice, right? Like, I can't say go gank from there each time. It doesn't work. This game is way too broad, and sometimes where, honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, I can't really make an example now, but there's a time where, let's say a pro gives you a play, and sometimes that's just not the play. Sometimes just charging in normally. Like, you get my point. It's the game is very broad, and players need to understand that. And a lot of players, a lot of their issue is they constantly try to look at these guides, they constantly look at all this stuff, and then they're like, oh, I just need to copy it word by word. I need to be a robot, right? Like, I need to copy the Spider-Man combo and stuff like that. They don't realize every game is different. Every game, there's broad scenarios. Like you said, maybe I need to hold that angle. Maybe I need to swap around. It really depends on the game.
I agree. I mean, like a lot of people that I do coaching for,
Yeah.
they always have like the similar idea. Of course, every situation is different, but if you want to get better at the game, the best way to get better is to understand general concepts, right? One concept could be that at the start of the game, you look at your team composition and you try to figure out what the win condition is compared to the opponent team composition. And that is super, super hard to figure out if you're new to the game, but that's what you can ask other people, right? Think about, okay, does Groot do more damage against Doctor Strange in the close range trade, right?
Yeah.
When he's behind natural cover. And then you can try to figure that out for yourself, genuinely with the rule, right? Again, try to do more damage than you take. And then you can calculate what kind of win condition you have. Sometimes it's playing on more range from the Strange, because then he does less damage than you, right? Sometimes they can be trying to play faster, right? And that's always the case. And for us professionals, it's the same. If we know they have Emma Frost, an example, and we need to make our dive work, then what a lot of professionals in our team at least do is we bait cooldowns, right? We bait Cloak Dome, we bait Diamond, Emma Diamond, so that we can then walk up. And this is something like that is very, very required to figure out if you look at the matchup, right? And a lot of people don't do that because it's a lot of work to look at the matchup and to actively think, okay, how can I like make my team composition stronger with my hero picks as well, right? What can I do to enable something? You know, like an example, you might have 2 dive heroes, and then you need a hero that helps sustain the main, like Phoenix, an example, that can still support a long range dive, but is very, very high pressure for the enemy tank that just plays in main, right? And enables a lot of angles too. So it's very, very important to look at the matchup and to figure that out.
I also want to say
like
that
a general concept.
a lot of people are
need to
intimidated by what you're saying now, right? They're like, what the fuck does pressure mean? Like, and the genuine
Yeah, it's a
only
lot
way
of
to get
things.
over that is just play the game. And I know, like, people have been playing the game, but you play the game, and instead of just playing it and then locking in some random character and diving, really genuinely sit there and while you're playing, say, what is the best thing I can do right now? And play. Like, play when you are actively trying to do something. Because a lot of players, when they play the game, they're not really actively doing something. They're just picking a hero and shooting whatever's the closest to them, right? Or let's say they do target acquisition, right? They're like, oh, let me target the supports, let me target the thing. And they do that, but they don't bait out cooldowns. So they wasted everything, and then Cloak uses her thing, and then, you know, you get my point.
I mean, a good example would be if you go in on a dive, right?
Yeah.
And as captain example, a lot of bad captains, what they do, and this is maybe something what you can do as a clip, but a lot of captains go in and shoot people when they're in the Cloak Dome. So you're actively feeding the support Cloak ultimates, and you're not getting a lot out of it because your cap ult will always be weaker in the ultimate trade than the Cloak ult. So if you track ultimates correctly and you know the Cloak doesn't have ultimate, then you just wait out the opponent dome, hide behind a wall, and then engage with 600 HP. Whereas if you like not doing that, you might get forced out early. Like a good example is you could go like Cloak, and I could show you.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, I'll do damage to you. Just damage me too. Just damage me back.
And then I'm out.
As you can see, like solo from Cloak, I couldn't confirm the kill, right? And you like still
I get
a lot
20%
of HP.
ult charge.
And now my entire engage would be over because only from Cloak being shot out, I'm already too low. If I just wait out the dome, right? If we take another cycle, right? And you use your cooldown and you have it on the floor on yourself, I go in, you use it for yourself, and then I see it and I go out and hide cooldowns. And then afterwards I go back in, right? And now I know the dome is gone, so now you're just gonna die to it, you know?
I'm fucked.
So Yeah, exactly, right? And you get 0 ult shot out of it. And this is something a lot of people need to start tracking, regardless of what they play. And they can literally do that with any hero. So, like, learn the matchup you're playing and understand what is the weakness of the opponent, so you can punish him for that weakness.
But it's like, it's one concept that's very simple, and it's something that people need to be reminded more than they need to be taught, right? Because it's very common sense. You can engage the first time, bait the stuff out, wait it out, and then once everything's been used, then you go in again. That's honestly a solid tip, by the way. Like, I'm genuinely surprised. I've had so many people on, they've never given that fucking tip. That's actually insane. That is actually insane, by the way. I give it so much in coaching. I always tell, because I had like Spidey players. I'm like, guys, like, you can go in the first time, bait the shit out, then go in and clean up.
Yeah, I mean, you should do it if you have the option for it. Like, an example, if you play a character where that's not possible, then of course it's hard. But like an example on Venom and Cap, that's always the case. You can always bait it and then just go out. Because it's fine to do it.
I mean, if you
and obviously, like, the generally, like, and this is also what you should, like, maybe include. But in my kind of point of view, right, I mean, as like the best player in the game right now, I would generally recommend, if you want to, like, be good at the game, one thing that is very, very important is to min-max your mechanics, your APM, right? A lot of people don't know what that is. It means actions per minute. It means that you know how to do the most damage in the shortest period of time, right? With combos, with animation cancels. It is insanely important to learn it, and it will help you grow your entire game out. And it is the competitive standard of every good player in the game, for sure. I mean, if you don't have good aim and you want to play an aim-heavy character, you're already missing out on so many opportunities just because you hit less shots. That means that you make your general gameplay way harder to be, right? It also means that you practice other aspects more, but I would always recommend to practice the aim first. And then you have that one maxed out to the point where it's acceptable in the competitive environment.
Like it's consistent.
Right?
It's consistent and good. Like you will land
consistent,
your hits.
And you will land your hits, and then you can look at other stuff too, right? But it's very hard to focus on all things at the same time, and I get it's quite overwhelming. And you will learn if you put in time, but if you actually want to be great at the game, it's about spending your time more efficient, right? Like if you are a full-time worker, right? Not like me, right? I mean, I'm doing this as a full-time job, right? I like this is not even like supposed to be fun, but it's my job, right?
Yeah.
I get paid from this, from organizations, from prize money, right? I win a lot of money, so that's my job to do, you know.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the same time as me, the only thing you can do to get to my level is to spend your time more efficiently than me.
Yes.
Right? And that's like the only way to catch up to people that have generally more time than you in the game. If you actually have the competitive will to get to that level. It can be extremely tiring, and that is where most people quit. But there's a lot of ways to help you with that. It's by looking at good people's gameplay and actually understanding what they do good. A lot of people don't do that, they just watch, and then I feel like, okay, this is what he does well, this is what he doesn't well, but it's not as in deep as he actually thinks. There's way more to it. And I feel like there's a lot of content on the market, like yours an example, where people are very, very deep with it, but a lot of people, they are very scared of watching it because it feels extremely tiring and super time consuming.
Yes.
Like an example, we have talked for so long, and all the information here is like pretty good overall, and will help with your mindset rather than your gameplay right now. And if you think about your gameplay only, you will leave out on tips like this that are very, very essential to making you a better player. Because this is what will help you in the long run, right?
Like I'm saying this from a guy who's played Splatoon in a high scene, right? I've played Splatoon high scene, surprisingly. League of Legends I've played on Challenger, right? Dota, all these games. Believe me, I've seen players who are insane mechanics-wise, right? But that mental is the literal only thing that separates. And the willingness to learn. I've seen players who are insanely good. They get just one really bad loss streak, they just completely fucking mental boom. And they don't want to improve anymore, they don't want to do shit. They don't use their time efficiently, they just autopilot in games. I really do believe, like you said, like the mindset is genuinely everything. There's millions of content, millions about how to play. There's millions about the best way to optimize your cap and stuff like that. But a lot of people just don't after I tell you, like, listen, you can't like get emotional in the game, you know, like you kind of just have to play and remember it's a game and you need to have fun and learn at the same time. And it's a lot more rewarding when you learn. I know it's annoying. It's really, believe me, I know it's annoying, but I used to struggle with combos
for
and stuff
everyone.
like that.
For me, you know, and this is something I can share with the audience too. I also don't hesitate to watch guides if someone has more knowledge about a character than me. But that doesn't mean that I will relearn and apply everything he does. That means that I'm looking at his gameplay, figure out what he doesn't do or what he does do that I don't do, and try to implement it in the game and evaluate whether it's worth to implement it or not. Right? So that is very, very, very important, regardless of when you play. Like, if a new character comes out and someone has more playtime in it than me, then he knows something that I don't know with a very high probability, right? So I'm gonna take a look at his gameplay, figure out what he does better when I play the character than me, right? And then make a decision whether I will include his gameplay on my part or not.
It's simple. It's like stats. Like, you are outright better. Like, game-wise, you're better. I'm sorry. Like, that guy is nothing, right? Like, in the kindest way. But he is better than you at, like, let's say Angela, right? Because she's coming out now. But that doesn't.
He will be better at it for the time where I have spent less hours in it, because he has more
hours,
mechanical
more
usage,
time, more stuff.
more time. He knows more about the hero. He knows the little techniques that might be there, the positions on the map that will be very, very strong for the character, the times when to use the character. There's a lot of things that can be calculated, and I think it's very, very important to do that.
Yes,
especially if you want to keep up with everyone.
Improve. Yep. A lot of guys always talk about how to play, or even some talk about your mental, but I've never seen a guy talk about how to effectively communicate with your team. What do you say about that?
I mean, for me, I am the IGL of my team. That means I lead them, right? I make a lot of strategies, but we also have individual roles for everyone, right? There's a lot of pressure on you as a leader, as a decision maker, right? And you can alleviate that pressure by being more acknowledgeable about what the team needs, right? Like, there are standard calls such as your own cooldowns, right? Calling your own cooldowns gives your entire team more awareness of what's happening in the fight, right? But you can also ask for resources too, right? Not necessarily calling other people's ultimates or stuff, but asking for resources, asking for engages, asking for timing, right? If you ask, are you ready to dive with me, right? These are like really standard calls that make a lot of difference, and they're always important, even in our kind of level, right? Of course, like, if you're at the level where we are, you can expect something to happen based on the fact that you see it on the screen, right? I know, an example, that my team is going to be low on cooldowns, even though I don't look behind, based on the fact that I know what's happening on the screen.
You've heard it.
But if you don't know what's happening, right, and you're really, really new to the game, and you see, okay, there's a lot of cooldowns going by you, right, and there's someone diving your backline, and no one's talking about it, you can say, what's happening right now? What do we want to walk forward, right? Do we want to push? And then your players will maybe tell you no and yes, right? And this is so important for you to grow, because you question yourself to the stage of the fight where you're like, okay, I thought I could walk forward, but suddenly I see there's a Spider-Man in our backline, and I was not informed about it, and I could have asked, and maybe that would have helped. Communicating in-game, especially with ranked teammates, is 70 times successful. And most of, 30 times successful and 70 times not successful. That's how the game is, and that's how it always will be, right? Because you can't expect everyone to, like, be communicative and be responsive, especially at the level they play, because it's very hard to make plays, and especially if you're at a level where you might make wrong calls, wrong strategist plays. But if you don't trust yourself to start that in the first place, then you're not going to grow. Because a lot of people, they're very invested into getting better, and they always appreciate someone trying to call.
Yeah, and it's a thing where, ironically, if you're not really knowledgeable about the game, when you say stuff out loud, you kind of force your brain to think, and that's how you improve. So even if the people don't listen to your call-outs, even if you are actively thinking about things where you would have not been thinking about them if you didn't use your comms. Because you are actively looking at things to say. And if I was example, I'm diving, right? I wouldn't be looking back to make a call. I wouldn't be saying, yo guys, I'm gonna engage. Wait, guys, backline. Stuff like that.
A lot of people, like, it's also like the general thing in our team. An example, we do ult track, right? That's also essential for us to work well as a team, right? Because it makes the fight plans and the strategy of the next fight different. Sometimes we run in, sometimes we play a bit slower because we have an ultimate combo that will guaranteed kill through, and we don't need to force a play, right? There's a lot of things that, like, influence your decision making, right? But at the level where other people are at, like, it's generally advisable to just call your own ultimate, right? Say what you want to do with your ultimate to your team, right? If you want to push in, if you want to, like, if you're a support player, call the time on the ultimate when it decays, right? Or even as a captain, right? As a captain, you can also count down your ultimate. So if it's about to end, that your teammates know that and can make according adjustments to their gameplay, right? they might think they can still walk in, right? And then suddenly they find that your ult ran out, and then they're in the wrong position, right? Because
then you fuck up
they're
the game.
close to the opponent when in a composition where they need to be far away from them. So you can like influence that a lot, right?
I was also gonna add on to that. I know you said track your own ultis, but I'll tell you something that genuinely won me so much games when I was learning the game. It's so easy. You can genuinely just press tab. If you see someone's ulti at 95%, you can always just say, Cap, you're gonna get your ulti up. Remember, Cloak, you have ulti. That has genuinely won me so many games. You can just track.
Really?
It's very easy. You can just
I don't
tab
really do
like
that,
when you're.
I don't really do that, but I
No,
can.
it's like it's because this was like when I was like new at the game. I still do it sometimes because people just genuinely like sometimes people just don't understand their ultis up, right? Like, or their ultis at 92% and they don't say that it's close. It's very easy. You just tab when you're in a fight, whatever. Just see whatever score at 90, be like, yo, bro, you're close to getting your ult. Remember. And that genuinely wins me so many fights. Because I'd see a Thor playing safe. I'm like, bro, your ult is at 90%. Remember. Then he goes in, charges in, then he uses his ulti, blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that. Like, it's very simple. That's why shot calling and stuff like that works. And it really helps because down the line, as I play the game, I get a better feel about how I used to ult track and stuff like this, right? And it's like you said, you just learn. You naturally learn. You know when to go and you know when your ulti is going to run out, etc., etc. What advice would you genuinely give besides everything we've done now, that if someone wants to enter the competitive scene as in with organizations and all this stuff?
Organizations, tournaments, finding a team, right?
Yeah.
All of that is quite hard, and a lot of people like always are very unapproachable to it. If you actually want to get noticed by people, the best thing you can do is actually act positive in ranked, because you're gonna reach a level to a point where people will like you will not meet the same people again, right?
Yeah.
If you're in low rank, but if you're actually in high rank,
It's the same
every
people.
game will have similar people,
Yeah.
right? That's how the game is supposed to be, right? And if you make a name in that game by not being toxic, by always showing up like as a responsible guy and actually proving that you can get somewhere in rank, that leaves a lot of respect and impression on other people. And that's usually the getaway ticket to getting into teams, right?
Yep.
The other way to get into teams is obviously to create your own with people that you respect, right? That can be like an example for us, right? Our team started too with me coming to with a friend of mine
Crook?
that recommended me into the team. No, I was originally Fate originally recommended me into his team, right? And then it was only us two, and I invited every other player based on the fact that I knew them from the past, right? And I have a history of playing with them too, so they are my friends, right?
Yeah.
And it always starts like this. It's really hard to just get on a team without anything. You can always ask for tryouts, for like you can always offer your service as
Random
to
stuff,
help. Usually the best advice I always give is just get a really, really high rank and be a respectful rank player.
Yes.
That's like the best advice I can get. And I know it's hard, especially because a lot of people want to play on a team because it makes them believe they will get stronger.
Yeah.
But a lot of times on teams, the interest of the idea of getting better is there, but the approach to how to get better is always a big issue.
Yeah.
Right? And it depends on what you trust, but generally, from my experience, being a very, very good rank player is actually the priority over team play.
Because they can see you're independent. Yeah, because they can see you're independent.
Yes.
You're not someone who. Because one issue people have is, and it's something honestly, I'll be honest with you, like, because of League, right? Like, I know these players. When you see someone who's always like, guys, let's go scrim, guys, let's go scrim, right? Like, and he's always needs to play with the team. What it tells you is this guy is not confident as a solo player, and he kind of needs a team around him. I get that it's like an organization, right? But they want a player who they know their individual skill is very strong, and their individual skill can hold them up.
I mean, individual skill is required to make a good team.
Exactly.
Because in the end of the day, if you want to play in a team to improve your team play, right?
Yeah.
But it makes it so much easier if you bring in individual skill.
Yeah.
Because that will not be reasons why you lose fights.
Exactly.
Right, in the logic. So that is incredibly important to min-max and max out, right? It's a part of both, and it's the same for us.
Yeah.
Like in our team, an example, we are required, or like I have a lot of say in the team, and I require everyone in my team to play ranked outside of practice too, right?
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of team practice, but we also require people to play ranked. Sometimes
training.
I require my people to like take other training, such as min-maxing cooldowns on heroes, right? Yeah. Sometimes I say, okay, we need to have better mechanical usage with aiming, right? We are lacking aiming. Then I go to them and tell them to fix that, right? In a way of
whatever.
Kovacs. I didn't want to say that because I didn't want to advertise it, but
No,
it's generally advice if it's seen, right, as a mistake. So every single mistake you can fix, you can try to fix, and then when you are in team play, you work on the team play rather than like the individual stuff, and that is super important because a lot of the team players that actually are playing team wise, they're like they're focusing too much on individual mistakes, and they go like in their friend call and they look at like the review of a fight and they say like, oh, you're just inting, right? You just ran in 1v6. Yeah, that's fine, right? But like that's an individual mistake. You need to look at how to approach the fight. What's the general win condition of the entire team composition? If you're even winning, right? Because the game is really complex, and most of the time you're not playing the same team composition. And figuring out if you even have a winning playstyle, a winning team composition, that's way more important than any individual mistake ever can.
Because you said winning playstyle, right, or winning team. What would you say is a candidate for a winning playstyle?
It depends on the matchup, right? On the compositions that are being played. Exactly, like a good example could be the opponent is playing a dive composition, and your composition has a general advantage of front to back and better ult economy, right? So an example that could mean that you have a lot more options to combine ultimates that guarantee fight wins, while they don't, right?
Exactly.
So that means your general approach of the fight should be slower than the opponents, right? Because you win if you get ultimates. Your ultimates are your win condition. So the opponent would have to figure out their win condition is outside of the ultimates and in the neutral fight, right? That's their best bet. Sometimes it can also mean that they don't have any chance, because their neutral win condition is also not good enough. Right? And especially in lower ranks, if you don't recognize that, it's always easier to play a composition that relies on ultimates rather than a composition that relies on team play, right? So it's very, very important to differentiate between those two.
I want to bring up a topic that I feel like a lot of people don't like bringing up, and I feel like people are very scared of failure, and they're very scared of thinking for themselves. As opposed to just like, I know you mentioned now where you look at other guides to learn, right? But you also said that you pick which information you use. And I feel like people are scared to do that. People don't realize that, let's say for example, you play cap, right? And I'm giving a cap guide. And I say something really important and I say something else that is just not good.
It's right? Also but what you're saying right now makes a lot of sense. But it's, for me, an example, it also is much easier than for other people to do that. Like an example is, I think of myself as the best player in the game.
And the reason why it's easier for you.
In the end of the day, I'm also the best player. And the reason why it's easier for me to approach guides the way I am and get value out of it in all the ways, right? And actually be the best at the hero, even though I just watched a guide from it, is because I can convert it in the way that I understand it. If you watch someone that has obviously way more hours in the game than you, and like an example, if you watch me, right? And I would make a guide, right? That guide would have more value to you because you respect the person that does the guide, right? And it's not about the respecting the mechanical part, it's also respecting the individual game plan part, right? How to play the hero. So that is super, super important, and trusting the guide when you watch it, right? Like you can't just like watch a guide that's like not gonna be helpful if you don't trust it, right? If you cannot trust stuff, then you're not gonna learn a lot from it.
It's a thing of you need to have an ego, but at the same time it's a paradox. Like you need to be open-minded, but at the same time you need to understand when someone is saying something and you know whatever he's saying is just not viable. Which is what you do in the guides. You only take what's viable, right? And then you use it in your own way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
like
part of the ego.
There's other stuff that I might not agree to.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Other stuff that I might not agree to, and then I have to make the experience for myself.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the hard part. And a lot of people are scared of the hard part of failing because they chose their own opinion. And I feel like that's one thing really crucial about learning. I'd rather genuinely argue with you about something, like a take in Rivals, and be wrong and learn from it, as opposed to just blindly following every single thing you say. Because at that point, I'm not maxed out. I'm not my own player with a little bit of ego. I'm just someone who's following every single thing TrqstMe says. And okay, let's say you are right? But I will not learn. I can't think for myself in that scenario, right? And I can't really experiment for myself. And I feel like a lot of players need that. They need to, like you say, have an ego, but at the same time be open-minded. The hard part is knowing what to have an ego at. And you only ever really get better at that when you play games and you see what works and what doesn't work. Yeah,
it's super important.
Yeah, it is super important. But it's like, this is something you'd be surprised by, because people don't understand this. Like, to them, it's like, they'd rather just copy every guide, or they'd be completely stubborn in their ways. They don't understand there's like the mix in the middle.
I think a lot of people actually understand that, but I think a lot of people don't know how to approach it to
Yeah.
make it work for them, because it's hard to differentiate, and it's hard to, like, as I said, it's hard to just like trust stuff if you don't
Yeah.
know better. Like an example, it's way easier to trust a person like me, an example,
Yeah.
on gameplay, because I'm way more approachable to trust them,
Yeah.
right? Or to be trusted, right? So that will mean that, but I mean it also means that, an example for me, if I make a misplay, I can't just like misguide people and say that every play I do is well.
Yeah.
Right? I have to be honest, and a lot of
Say
people
when you fucked
like
up.
they might spot, okay, this was not a genuine good play, and then I should always be open to have a discussion about it and be honest about it. This is like something
Yeah.
I do personally, really, really important.
That's my
for
point.
me.
You are.
It's something in team play too.
Yeah.
Like if I make a genuine misplay, then I'm open-minded to be corrected, but I can also voice my opinion based on the fact why I think this might have been a good play, right? And that's super important.
It's something else. Like, you are not scared of failing. You're not scared of admitting when you're wrong. That's also something it should boil down to.
In the end of the day, you know, everyone always acts smug outside
Yeah.
of like the game, right? And
Yeah.
they always say like the only way to learn is from mistakes, and it's the same in game.
Yeah.
You can only learn from mistakes, or like
Yeah.
most of the time you learn from mistakes. Other people learn from knowledge from others, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with reading a book.
Yeah.
You can read a book and you can learn something from the book, or you can experience what is like written in the book yourself.
Exactly.
Like an
Yes.
example,
Yes.
like-
Exactly.
Like an experiment, right? And you can either make the experiment yourself, or
Just
you can
see what
like read
happens.
about the experiment, right, of other people that have experimented, right?
Yeah.
And that's like what you do, and then you judge your own way.
If you guys enjoy the content and you want to learn from the best of the best of the best, follow TrqstMe on Twitch and YouTube.